Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our webinar today entitled Information at Your Fingertips. My name's Michael and I'll be your host for today, but I'm joined by Warren Briggs, who's our senior consultant here at Professional Advantage, has worked on many implementations throughout the years. Warren, I won't embarrass you with an exact number of years, but we've both worked together for a long time. And Warren's focus now is around business intelligence and very much focused around planning, forecasting, budgeting, etc. And we'll take you through the presentation today. And today's presentation is around, as you can see, the drill down actions in Board being the solution. And the drill down actions there being some specific functionality that we want to show to you today. We recently ran some training within the Board solution, and one of the key pieces of feedback from the attendees was the fact that they've acknowledged that they may be underutilising some of the potential that is within the Board solution. So today is very much about showing you something that you may or may not realise is possible within the Board product. And I can see we've got a number of different types of attendees. We've got some existing Board customers, so you'll be familiar with the solution and see some things maybe that you weren't quite aware of to take your use to the next level. We've also got some people that are interested in just looking at the Board solution overall, so I think you'll find some of the functionality today very interesting. So before we get started, I just wanted to mention two very specific points for you today. The first one is we will allow some time for questions at the end of the session. So while this is a webinar, on the right-hand side of your screen in your GoToWebinar panel, you can type in a question for us at any time, and we'll allow some time for Warren and I to go through those questions at the end of the session. So if you have a question, please type it in and we'll get to it right at the end. And secondly, we are recording this session for you today, which will allow you to either revisit the recording and look at it again yourself, or even pass it through to someone else within your organisation that you think may be interested. As part of the follow-up to today's session, we will send you a thank you for attending and a link to the recording on our YouTube channel. So on that, I'd like to hand over now to Warren, who will actually take us through the presentation. As I mentioned, don't forget to put your questions in to the panel on the right-hand side, and we'll get to those at the end of Warren's presentation. Thanks, Warren.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everybody. As Michael said, my name is Warren. I'm going to take you through the drill actions in Board. So just the first topic here, or the first point, why this particular feature? As Michael said, having run training courses recently and coming across people that aren't fully utilising the product, one of the features that is often underutilised in Board is the drill actions. And perhaps part of the reason for that is that within Board, the drill actions are frequently referred to as drill down. And when anybody hears drill down, it's such a common term these days. It's in many applications, they all have different implementations of drill down functionality. And people have an almost implicit meaning when they hear the word drill down. And as a result, they're perhaps not investigating the full use of the feature. In Board, it's a little bit more than just a simple clicking and following of a link. And the other reason for presenting it today is because it's very simple to implement within the solution. So if you're not using the drill actions to their fullest, you can take away the information from this webinar and perhaps implement them straight away. So let's not dwell on slides, let's get straight into the presentation of the application. I'm just going to switch across to Board. What I've built here is just a simple capsule that demonstrates the different drill actions that are available within Board. The first four icons here on the main screen, they are the Board drill actions. So there's drill down, drill to screen, drill procedure, and drill through. And we'll see what each of those involves. The final icon at the bottom of the screen there is a slightly different implementation of these drill actions, and I'll take you through that when we get to the end. So let's look at the first option here, which is drill down. Now, when drill down is turned on in Board, you can see it as an icon that appears to the left of your data view. In this case, it's a little blue arrow. You can also see it when it's implemented as a button over the top of the figures that are presented on the screen. When you click the drill down, regardless of which method you're using, if you've got no set drill down path, the first thing that opens is this configuration window, and that gives you all of the choices that are available for drilling down to another level of the system. So for example, if I take my sales figure and I drill in by the P&L, I can see how that sales figure is across the various lines of my P&L account. I can keep going as far as I want, so if I take my parts and finished goods and I drill again, I'm presented with a configuration window. I can choose my account and break out that finished goods by the various finished goods accounts. I can keep going. If I take my US sales, and perhaps I'd like to break that out by month, and it keeps stepping down as far as I want to go or as far as the data will take me. So I'll just close those windows down. So that's sort of the common understanding that people have when it comes to drawdowns. But what if I don't wish to have my users stop and think and make a choice each time about where they're going? What if there is a preset path where they always want to go? So you can, as you're building your screens in Board, you can save those paths and the user's choices become a lot simpler. So on this second example, if I drill down on finished goods, it takes me directly to my breakout by account. I don't have to stop and make my choice. If I drill again, it takes me to a breakout by department and showing me my months. So obviously that's a lot simpler. It's easier for your users to understand. It takes them where they need to go. But I wonder if you noticed when I drilled that time that there were some slight differences between the views that were presented and when I drilled down on the first example. If we just open it up again, I'll take you through what those changes were. Within this drill down, I'm actually displaying the account number, which isn't present on the lower level that I started from when I was looking at the P&L. I've also changed the description of the layout that's presenting the data. So this one's saying by account, whereas I started off with one that said P&L report. And if I drill again, we'll see the view is changing again. So rather than showing me a year-to-date figure, this is showing me monthly figures. And again, my heading has changed. So you're able to configure the layout for each level of your drill down, not just take it as an expansion of the starting point. The way that's done is through the layout tool that's present on each of the drill down windows. This is the same tool where you actually create your initial data view, so you have the same flexibility to add more information, structure it in different ways, filter it on each level of your drill down. You don't have to simply expand the starting point. So that's sort of one of the first differences that you might see in Board compared to, say, a standard understanding of what drill down might mean. Let's look at a different example. Over on the right I have a drill down for data entry. I'm just going to filter my data here to restrict it to the corporate department. You'll notice when I do that, my data entry is turned on. If you're not familiar with Board, you haven't used it too much before, data entry is enabled when the screen background color changes, and by default it's this slightly pale yellow color. Hopefully everybody can see that reasonably clearly. Now with data entry, it's one of the key features in Board. You're able to enter data, not just simply navigate your way through it, and that's what makes one of the things that makes Board such a good tool for forecasting and planning, is the ability to enter data and change the values that you see. Now, one of the features in Board is referred to as split and splat, where you can enter a figure at a high level. So I could click on this number, change it, and let it roll the changes through my lower levels. So break it out by division or department or across the periods for the 2014 year that I'm entering there. But rather than do that, what I'm going to do is drill into this. And when I do, I get another example of an expanded view which has a completely different structure to the one I started from. So here I'm stepping down to data entry at a lower level, and you still have all the data entry features that Board offers. So if I was to go here and change my figure for the administration division, make it 30,000, changing it at the total end. It rolls it back through all of the other periods, keeping the proportions that were there previously. And if I save my data entry, it'll then refresh my screen and we come back and I've got the newly updated figure. So what we're seeing here is an example where drill down allows you to see much more than a single screen's worth of information, but still build it within one screen. So I've been able to drill down through multiple levels, letting the user either choose where they go or preset the path for them. I can set up data entry screens at a much lower level without having to actually go and create a separate screen, which is often the case. Sometimes when users are faced with this particular scenario, they might build out the screen so that it shows both detail and summary information, and the screen becomes quite large. And as soon as you include that level of detail, you tend to need to add more selectors, as I've got over there on the left, and so they can make their choices and focus on the particular area that they want to do data entry for. But rather than doing that, one of the options is to drill down, because the focus is already set by the cell or the row that you click on when you expand your view. Okay, so let's move back to the main screen. And we'll look at one of the other features, which is the drill to screen action. Drill to screen, as the name suggests, it's not a very complex name. It's there to allow you to move from one screen to another. So here I've got a simple actuals versus forecast view of some sales figures, and that's being structured at the account level. So I've got my different accounts and their account groups as we go down the screen here. But what if I wanted more detail than that? What if I needed to see it at the per customer level, for example? Now, you could do that in lots of different ways. You could simply add another dimension to this view and have it grouped by customer, and the data view becomes very large at that point. You could build another screen, which is the sort of common way a lot of people will approach it. And as an example, I've done it here. I've got this button which will take me to the customer detail screen, so let's just go there. When I open the customer detail screen, I'm seeing information structured per customer, but I've also got additional objects. I've got a chart there, for example, and in here I can make my selections and focus on a particular account and see how that's broken out. It's probably not a great example given that that's only in one country, okay, but you get the idea. The idea is that I can expand the view and the user makes their selections. But rather than having the user make their selections, you can do that from the initial screen. So if we go back and look at our drill actions, this time it's a slightly different icon indicating that it's drill to screen. And what this is going to do is take me back to that same screen, but it makes the selections for me based on the choices that I made on my starting screen. So all the information that I have over here on the left, where I've got selectors that'll let me choose the account and the department and so on, all those things aren't really necessary if I'm accessing this screen from a higher screen. So I've got more available space to add additional objects, maybe more charts, more information, or an expanded view where it's broken out by month, that type of thing. Or in my case, maybe I want to break it out even lower and go by week. So all those choices can be done on that starting screen, and the real estate is given over to more useful information that you can display to the user, and it's all done so that you can keep your design focused on a single screen where the user doesn't have to scroll up or down or keep expanding and collapsing different groups if that's the way you've implemented it. So drill to screen is a good way of saving yourself a lot of screen real estate. It's not the only feature that drill to screen is used for. I recently implemented a capital project forecasting system for a client, and in that solution everything was essentially accessed from the main dashboard. The client had a dashboard where you could choose your project. The project screen would display actuals, budget figures, forecast figures, calculate the cost to complete, and it was broken out over a series of different expenditure accounts, so you had a nice single screen view of a project. But from that screen they could then drill down to all of the detail screens that supported it. So they could go to the budget entry screen, they could go to the forecast entry screen, they could drill down to a screen that reported all of their actuals and showed them the details. They could also then have different variants of those screens. So based on the expense account that they were using, whether it was an internal account, an external one, or one that related to labour, the variation of all of those screens was slightly different and the layout was slightly different. None of those screens that they had at the detail screen needed to be part of the menu structure of the capsule, because they would always use the main dashboard, select their project and navigate from there. And that's one of the things that Drill to Screen gives you, is the ability to control the navigation without having to build a complex menu structure. Okay, so let's go back and look at another option for drill actions. We'll look at the drill to procedure, or drill procedure I should say. Now a procedure in Board is simply a series of actions that you can sequence together. The actions that you use in Board with a procedure are just about anything that you can do with the product, so it can be from making selections on a screen to navigating to different screens, producing reports, email broadcasting, manipulating data, integrating, retrieving data from external systems. Just about anything that you can do in Board you can do with a procedure. And then what the drill actions do is allow you to put those procedures into the context of your data. So rather than having, say, a button on the screen that launches a set procedure, you can embed them as I've done here in the data view. So what we're looking at is a simple sales forecasting screen where I have added this column, these buttons as they appear, and what it is doing is giving me an aid to data entry. So if I was to click on the button, for the selected account, which is my installation charges for the US, I can take my prior year forecast and add a set percentage to it as an aid to data entry for the current year. So if I wanted to change that to a previous year plus 10%, you'll see that when the procedure executes and the screen refreshes, over on the right hand side my variance is now bumped up to 10% because I've put it there. All the data entry is still available though. I can go into an individual cell or change the total and adjust my data entry, but the sort of heavy lifting of getting to that starting point is done by the procedure. So I'm helping my users without necessarily limiting their actions. You can also implement the drill procedures on the left-hand side via this little icon, and you get the same choices or a different set of choices if you wish, and do the same thing. So if I wanted to take this Australian sales, Australasian sales for installation and mark it up by 15% based on the prior year, I can launch it from there, and you can see my variance is now 15%. So that's a relatively simple example of how you might use a procedure in a drill action. Your options for using procedures are really only limited by your imagination, however, because there is so much that you can do with a procedure. One of the other things that procedures does is eliminates the need for a lot of selections. Often you see procedures implemented on a screen behind a button, and with that button, to make it work for the right range of data, you'll then implement perhaps a selector or pager on the screen, or a number of them, to limit down the data that you are working with when you execute that procedure. But when you limit the data down, you also are limiting what the user can see on the screen. Now, rather than doing that, if you implement the procedure as a drill action, as I've done here, you can keep all of your data displayed, and because you launched it from either the row or the cell, when it executes, it's already got the right scope and it's updating the right set of data, but I'm still looking at the full set of data. I'm not looking through a keyhole, which is sort of the effect you can get sometimes when you have a lot of detailed screens that are limited down to a specific set of data. So let's go back to the main screen and we'll look at the fourth drill action in board, which is the drill through. Drill through is a mechanism for retrieving data from an external data source. So for example, pulling transaction lists back from maybe your ERP or drilling to any other source application that you might be getting data from with board. So in this example, I have just a simple list of expenses at the P&L level, and if I go down to something like salary and wages, for example, and I drill into that, my first step is the standard drill down that we saw at the start of the presentation, where I can see the breakout of my salaries and wages by the various accounts that they come from. If I go to one of the rows, commissions for example, and I drill again, this time it actually is pulling live data back from my source application. So what we're seeing here, if I just scroll across to the right a little bit, is all of the transactions that make up that particular figure. This is pulled live from my source application, my ERP in this case. If I scroll to the end, you can see that I'm pulling transactions from both the January and the February period. And the reason that it's doing that is when I clicked my row, if I just close this down and you can see, it is using the row as a parameter for the query, and it's also using the selections on the screen as a parameters for the query. When you build a drill through query in board, it's a mix of parameter fields and additional information, and the parameters are mapped to the different entities you're using in board. So in my case they're mapped to accounts, they're mapped to months. So when I retrieve my data, I get the effect of the selection for the quarter, so it's showing me figures from both periods, and I'm getting the effect of choosing a particular row, which in my case is the account. Now, like all the other drill actions in board, you can implement that as either a row selection on the left, or you can put it as a button over the top of the actual figures. So if I go to the February column and I click on my commissions amount there that's for $3, when I click this time, it's the same query, but it is returning only the subset of data that relates to February, which in my case is a single transaction for $3. So the columns, like the rows, act as filters that are passed through to the query. You're not limited with the data that you can return from your source system. You can really pick anything that you want, and when you're building those queries in board, you can choose which fields are being displayed. That information is then presented in this view, which you can, as you can see from the button here at the top, you can export out to Excel if you'd like to do that. So one of the advantages of using a drill through is that you don't have to bring in unnecessary detail into your solution that you're building in board. You can keep the solution nice and lean, nice and fast, and the detail is provided through those drill throughs. Very rarely do you need to draw in transaction level detail, as we've seen just there. Users might still want to see that information, but it can be facilitated with a simple drill through at the point that they need to see it. So what we've seen so far are the different drill down actions in board. This fifth option down here, which I've called drill into, isn't a board function as such. It's an implementation of those drill actions that we've already seen. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is drill into an external application from board using the drill actions. So you might be able to see at the bottom of my screen, I've got this application which is open, which is my ERP. In my case, that's Dynamics GP, and what we're going to do here is use this grid to navigate from board into my external application by clicking on a particular cell. So if I go to, say, shrinkage and waste and come across here to one of the figures, you can see it's going to run my open summary inquiry screen. So when I do that, the procedure will execute, and then at the bottom of the screen you'll see another window pop up, and I'll just bring that to the front so you can see it. So I've gone from board, passing control across to my ERP, filling in the account that I've selected and the year that I was working on, and I'm in my other application now, so I can go ahead and do all the standard inquiries and features that that application offers. So in the ERP there's obviously drill down facilities there as well, so I'm moving through the system from a high level at a summary level for the year down to the individual transact, down to the source document in the subledgers that they came from if that was the particular case. So all of that happens just from a drill action that we've included in board. So you're not limited to using a single screen. You can use as many screens as you wish. So if I go back to board and I do the same thing but for a different account this time, so I move to the freight and handling account, for example, do the same thing. The screen will open, I'll just bring it to the front, and I'm now in the freight and handling account, and I'm away again drilling down through my external application. You can open that up to as many windows as you wish. On the left-hand side here I've implemented another drill into, but this time it's to open the account maintenance window. So if I select the purchases discount account, run the process again, and this time I'm going to a different window in my ERP. So here's the maintenance screen. I can go ahead and make my changes to this account, save it, and come back to board. So you're not limited with what you want to do with drill actions. This is probably a slightly more unusual example of something you might do with a drill action. It really is up to you. The way this particular action is working is that board is running the procedure that actually builds the link, and then the external application is processing that link to show me the screen with the appropriate values already filled in. So that's a feature of the external application, but board is using its technology and feature set to actually generate the link that that application uses. You're not limited to GP as I've used here. Many applications offer the ability to process a link to get you into the system. I know, for example, SAP does it, and I'm sure there are many, many others. Okay, so at that point, that's what I wanted to show you today with the various drill actions. Let's just quickly go back to the PowerPoint. I just want to summarize what we've seen so far. So we've looked at the drill down action, which is sort of the most common one, the people that most usually understand when they hear drill down. It allows you to expand and, more importantly, alter your view of data. We've seen the drill to screen, which lets you navigate from one area of the system to another without having to remake your selections along the way. We've looked at the procedure action, which lets you run a process from a drilling action, and that really is not limited. That's totally up to your imagination as to what you want to do with that. And we've seen the drill through, which lets us retrieve data from a source system without having to bring that data into the board database. So you're essentially connecting as a query from board to the other system. So hopefully this afternoon I've been able to show you some of the benefits of using the drill actions. I've listed a few of them here on the screen. But at this stage I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'll pass control of the presentation back to Michael, and we can see if there are any questions.
Excellent, thanks Warren. And look, there's a couple of things I particularly liked. One was that really technical term that you mentioned, the split and splat. I like I like that piece of functionality. But look, I thought it was great to show that integration within another application. I think that's very nice. Launching back into another application there. Your example was Dynamics GP, but as you said, not limited to your example. So great awareness there on functionality for for people with regard to board. And just to note as well, while we're talking to a couple of different types of audience members here, those that are using board already and probably shown some things there that they can take advantage of and may not have been previously aware, but also just some great features there, in particular the ability to edit information there as you're going through within board. So that was good to present. So just a reminder for everyone, we'll take questions, and when I say we, I'll do the asking of the questions, and thankfully Warren will do the answering of the questions. I think that should work well for us, Warren. But just a reminder on exactly on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel there, you can actually type in the questions now. We have got some questions that have already come through, Warren. So while people are just adding more questions there, if we're right to start. So the first one here is about licenses. So the question is, are there any license charges associated with using the drill actions in board?
Okay, no. The drill actions are part of the standard core functionality. They're available at no additional licensing charge. So all of the different user types that there are licenses for in board, which is developer, power user, Lite Plus and Lite, which are the various license types, they're all accessible for drill actions. So no.
Okay, excellent. So specifically useful there for the existing board clients, there's no additional licenses required there. It's already enabled and available.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting question here about security, data security. So does the security still work with a drill through action, so specifically with drill through?
Yes, it does. Provided you've got security over the parameters for your query, then the data that it's returned is limited. So in board, you've got the ability to set your security at a sort of functional level, where you're controlling what the user has access to in terms of the various capsules. But you've also got database security, where you can limit the data a user sees within a given screen based on a preset selection. So you might be limiting a user, for example, to a department or a division or something like that within your organizational structure. When you're using those values as parameters for the drill through obeys the security rules, so I can't use the drill through to circumvent my security that's set up within board.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we've got another question here. Actually relates to the last thing you showed with specifically with Dynamics GP. So the question is, what do you need to do in Dynamics GP to make the drill into process work?
Oh, okay. So that's more of a GP question, but we'll answer it anyway. So within GP, they have what's called a protocol handler, which is the mechanism that allows you to call a GP window from a link. You see it implemented in things like SQL Server reports that are written for GP, or drilling down from Excel back into GP or the financial reporting tools. The protocol handler does that. There's actually a module in GP called SmartList Builder, and one of its features is called Drill Down Builder, and that allows you to essentially create a link to any of the screens in GP, regardless of which application they belong to. There's various dictionaries in GP that control different sets of functionality, and that builder tool allows you to then create links into GP, and that's how you get the right syntax for a particular link, and then you have board actually create that link on the fly from a drill action. So yeah, SmartList Builder is the tool that you'll need on the GP side. It's implemented differently in other products SAP does it a completely different way, as I understand it. But yeah.
Okay, excellent. And yeah, as you said, it will be specific to the application you're trying to drill into. We will just help understand what that is. You demonstrated GP today, but it would be available with others. Okay, we've got a version-specific question here, and I, of course, won't mention anyone's name when they ask this, but someone may be running version 8. So the question is this functionality, is this drill actions functionality only available in board version 10, or is it also available in version 8?
It's also available in version 8 is the short answer. It's the drill actions have been in board from quite early on. There should be no limitations there back to version 8. Okay, excellent. So yes, as you said, the short answer is yes, it's available in version 8. So if you are running an older version, it is available. We would also encourage everyone to try and stay on the latest version if at all possible. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe not specifically to this drill actions, but for other functional and specific reasons. Yes. Okay, Warren, we don't need to hang around if there are no more questions coming through. I'll just do one final call out. If anyone has got a question, please enter it in now, just on the right-hand side there if you go to webinar panel, and we can answer it now. If not, of course, happily answer your questions as part of the follow-up process at the conclusion of this webinar today. So Warren, we might be okay to move on. It might have been a short question and answer session today. I'm okay with that. Excellent, excellent. All right, well look, just in terms of the what's next piece after today's webinar, as mentioned previously, we do have a couple of different types of audience participation here today. So for organisations that we're already working with using Board, happy to reach out to your account manager if you'd like to know more about what you've seen today. Book a time with one of our consultants. We will do that as part of the follow-up to today's session. But please contact your account manager if you'd like to know more or work with us further. And for anyone that we're not specifically working with already with Board, you'd like to know more, please contact Eleanor. You'll see her contact details there on the screen in front of you. And just other sessions that we have coming up, so just a small advertisement. I know we've shown the application today being Board, and we did, or Warren demonstrated an integration back into Dynamics GP. We do have a Dynamics AX webinar coming up. That's Friday week, so the 23rd of September, focusing specifically on the procurement functionality within Dynamics AX. So if you are one of our AX clients, please attend. We'd love to see you there. Or if you're interested in seeing what's possible with the Microsoft Dynamics AX solution, please come along and join that webinar as well. So on that, Warren, I'd just like to say thank you to yourself for showing us through the functionality today. As I mentioned, I think you did a great job of covering that from a technical perspective as well as an overview on what's possible within Board. And for our audience today, thank you for attending. As I mentioned, we will follow up as part of the session today and send you a copy of the recording as a link to our YouTube channel. And as you leave the session today, there will be a pop-up as part of the exit of the webinar where you'll be able to also note your interest in further information with regard to Board, and we'll happily follow up with you on that. So on that, thank you for everyone for attending today, and we hope to see you again in one of our webinars and look forward to working with you with Board in the very near future. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.